Time for another mock draft then using the Sportskeeda mock draft simulator. I'm going to do a 7-round Seahawks projection. So let's get into it. I'm going to go through all of the picks one by one as we go through. So here we go. Here is the simulation. I've already pulled it up because I've got to this point and look, I think there's a good chance the Seahawks are going to trade down. But the scenario that I wanted to portray here is one that I also talked about on Seahawks Draft Blog this week, is that when I see a lot of trade down scenarios, Seahawks fans are desperate to find a way to get back into the second round. That is not necessarily going to be realistic. There may not be a trade offer to get back into round 2 for the Seahawks. And they might just have to take the best offer they can get if they, in fact, want to trade down. Now, in this scenario, I'm just sort of planning on trading down. So there's no stick or pick scenario here. I want to show a projection where they take the best offer and they move down. And it could be something like this. It could be about getting some stock for next year, just moving down a few spots, getting another 3rd or 4th rounder. It might not be ideal. It might not be what you want the Seahawks to go and do. It might be what they have to do, given that they've used up a lot of their best draft stock, which is the picks on day 2. They now only have one day 2 pick. In this scenario, they don't add any more. But just as a starting off point for this draft, they might not get an offer that enables them to move right back. And I'm going to try and be realistic with this thing. So this is what we're going to do with the Eagles. We're going to move down from 16 to 22. I'm not trading down to 48, 52, or 38. I mean, look, that'd be quite tempting because you get a first rounder next year. But and I do think that is a good range to pick. So that would be a fantastic deal. I just, not sure about that one. I don't really want to go down that road with this mock draft. And I also don't know whether the Titans are going to be giving up future first-round picks to move back into the back end of round 1 when they might not be that great next year because they might be giving away like a top 15 pick. So here we are, pick 22. I'm going to take somebody that I've been talking a lot about this week. I'm not for a second sort of, pitching my tent to this player. I just think that for this week, it is somebody that I want to focus on and talk a lot about, and that's Darius Robinson. I'm going to take him here, and I'm just going to pause it and move back up and explain why. Now, the first thing is, this is a draft with a lot of interior offensive linemen. So while people will look at the O-line quite rightly and say that is Seattle's biggest need right now, John Schneider said on the radio 10 days ago that he feels that interior offensive linemen are being overpaid and overdrafted. That is a suggestion that he is not going to take, for example, a guard with his first pick or necessarily a center. Now, I don't think it rules it out completely. It may be a little bit of misdirection there. And they haven't addressed it in free agency. But I just get the sense that they're maybe going to do something a little bit differently. So why Darius Robinson? First of all, character. They have talked about for the last 2 drafts that they have been selecting players when it comes to character without compromise. It's why I spent the whole of the last draft season saying they would not take Jalen Carter. Got an absolute ton of grief for that. Had to keep reinforcing why, and it didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is because it was the total opposite of drafting for character without compromise would be to take Jalen Carter in the top 10. Darius Robinson is known as Mr. Mizzou. That's how well regarded he is at Missouri. He is the heart and soul of that team. I interviewed Mekhi Wingo, who used to play with him at Missouri before he transferred to LSU, and he basically said that Darius Robinson taught him how to be a pro. He is an exceptional character player. That's no good unless you're talented. He is. He is not the twitchiest athlete in the world, granted. But he can create chaos up front. Kirby Smart said as much before they played Missouri. He singled this guy out and said number 6 can cause a lot of trouble up front. And he can. You see it. And it's not a refined approach. He's not, gliding off the edge, bending and straight into the quarterback. He is not just an emphatic bull rusher. There is an ungainly style to his play, which is reminiscent of Jadeveon Clowney. He's all arms and legs, but he seems to just create chaos. He's an F the play up artist, as Chris Sims would say on PFT. A lot of people compare him to Cam Jordan. I don't believe that he's a Cam Jordan type. I don't think clearly he's not as twitchy as Cam Jordan. He ran like a 4.37 short shuttle. I thought Cam Jordan was a top 5 lock. If you don't believe me, go and check out my final mock draft from 2011, where I had him 3rd overall to the Buffalo Bills. He's not like that. But he is, in terms of testing numbers, size, very, very similar to Arik Armstead, who was the 16th overall pick for the Niners and has had a tremendous career. And I believe that Darius Robinson can have a similar career. Now, I think if you say to most Seahawks fans, do you want to take a chance on somebody who could be the next Arik Armstead in the middle of the first round? A lot of them will say yes. So with the character, with the talent, and look, I think you plug him in, he can play edge off a 4-man front, inside on a 3-man front. You can play 3 technique. He can play 5. He can play off the edge. Look, there's a lot of things you can do with a player like this. It seems to me a little bit like the Seahawks might want to create a dominant defensive line to be sort of the focal point of this new Mike McDonald era. I think a lot of people focused on linebacker and safety just because of the way that the Ravens are built. It seems to me a little bit like they're actually going, D-line. They've paid Leonard Williams. They may well go with a defensive lineman early here. I thought it was very interesting that Jim Nagy, when he was talking to Mina Kimes on Twitter about Jackson Powers-Johnson, said he doesn't think the Seahawks are going to go offensive line in the first round. And I picked up on that a little bit. I just wonder if they're going to take a defensive lineman here and just go all in to create a fantastic defensive line and make that sort of the identity of the defense moving forward. And if they do, Darius Robinson could be the pick. Had a fantastic Senior Bowl. Like I said, there's a lot of things to like about him. So taking him at 22. As a consequence of not moving right down the board, you then have to wait till 81 to pick again. And as you can see, a lot of players have come off the board at this point. So focusing on sort of their needs and maybe best player available and stuff like that, it's quite a tricky one to work out what to do here. But the player I'm going to take is Trevon Wallace, the linebacker from Kentucky. I just think he has a lot of the things that the Seahawks will look for. Very aggressive, well-sized. I think he can play both linebacker spots. He will hammer people. Now, he's not a flawless prospect. Otherwise, he won't be going in the middle of the 3rd round. But when I watched Trevon Wallace, I didn't see a huge difference between him and Junior Colson, who a lot of people want to take in the 2nd round. I just think he is a very solid 3rd round prospect who, at the very least, could end up having a similar career to Jerome Baker, who was also a 3rd round pick who the Seahawks have just signed. They do need to draft a linebacker to add some depth and some youth to the position. Their current linebackers are only on 1-year deals, so it makes sense to invest in somebody who can play there a little bit longer, potentially, and sort of be maybe a rotational guy in year 1 and then a starter next year and beyond. So Trevon Wallace is the pick at 81 for the Seahawks. Into the 4th round. So I appreciate we have not done anything on the offensive line yet. And that is clearly Seattle's biggest need right now. And I would have loved, for example, to get into that 3rd round and a Zach Zinn to still be there, which could happen because of his broken leg. But that wasn't the case. So when you get to the 4th round, you have to start looking. Now, I am not going to take Brandon Coleman here because I can tell you now, there's absolutely no chance that Brandon Coleman will be around at the top of the 4th round. So I'm going to ignore that he's available. I'm going to take Trevor Keegan, the guard from Michigan. The reason I'm going to take him is because he is... I just think when you watch the Michigan offensive line, and Husky fans will know this, look how dominant they were up front against the Huskies in the national championship. And it certainly wasn't because of the left tackle, who is I think a very fringe NFL backup player. And Trent Jones, who was the right tackle, for me, plays guard at the next level. So it wasn't just because they had top 10 picks at tackle and that was it. It was because of the toughness and the physicality of the interior line. Trevor Keegan has played over 40 games for Michigan. He is somebody who is, I would say, NFL ready. I think he's a decent athlete. I thought he performed very well in his combine workout. He ran in the 4.6s for his short shuttle at the pro day the other day, which is fine. It's not elite. It's a 4th round pick. I think he is as close to a plug and play guard that you're going to get in the 4th round. He's tough. He's physical. He's got the size that I think this coaching staff will look for. He's got the attitude. I just think he gives you a great chance to get a starter in round 4. And how often do you say that? So it doesn't have maybe the chops of someone like Zach Zinter in terms of expectations at the next level. But I think he's the kind of player that can come in and have an immediate impact. So I'm going to take Trevor Keegan there. And again, with these 3 picks, I don't think it's going to get many Seahawks fans excited. If I did a mock draft and I could go in all sorts of different ways here and you could go, yeah, that looks fantastic. Really appreciate the mock draft. I love this. I really hope this happens. I'm trying to do a mock draft that I think is somewhat realistic and getting somebody who can add to your defensive line and just mess plays up and create chaos and can be a potential Eric Armstead, a linebacker who could be the long-term future at either linebacker spot, who's very aggressive and physical, a guard who can slot in and potentially start from day one at left guard, who's very experienced in college at that position. That just seems quite probable to me. And I have to say with these 3 players, they might not be sort of quote unquote sexy picks, but I do think that all 3 could be very valuable contributors in a sort of meat and potatoes draft style. So 100, 118, I am going to go in a very specific direction here if the player is still available. And he is. I do not believe that Malik Mustafa and Tyler Nubin are going to be available in this range. And if they were, I would take one of those 2. I'm going to take Dominick Hampton here because from the people that I speak to, they say extremely positive things about Dominick Hampton. I have a really good source at Washington University, and they think that he is not just very tough and physical, but highly intelligent player who was asked to do an incredibly complex role at Washington, which required discipline, instinct, just understanding what was going on the offense. And he mastered that role and he was trusted to do it. Highly respected individual. There's a theme going through all of these picks. They're all high character, very aggressive, love football types. Dominick Hampton, to me, could come in and maybe initially he's maybe a core special teamer, but he could be competing for sort of that nickel slot, strong safety slot. I just think he is a very underrated player within a safety class that people don't realize how good it is, because people talk about Cam Kinchins, who is completely overrated, and James Williams, who is completely overrated. They may last until round 5, and people are putting them in round 2 and round 3 still. The players like Dadrian Taylor Demerson, who's still available, he will not be available in round 4. He could easily be a second-round pick. Tyler Nubin's not going to be available in round 4. Malik Mustafa, probably not available in round 4. These are really good football players. And assuming that they're all gone, I think Dominick Hampton gives you a chance again to get somebody who can be a really good player within Mike Macdonald's system, which requires a lot of versatility at safety. So I've taken him there. And again, not exactly the most exciting draft class, but one that could be really important to sort of flesh out the spine of the team. And I know, and I get it. People say that the Seahawks need stars. They need some players that are going to become top players. And you've got to try and find those players somehow. But if it was as easy as just, hey, that player's going to be a star. I mean, look, you can maybe take a chance on upside and you hope to coach it up and develop it. Maybe that's what they should do with at least one of these picks. But for me, these are players that if you want to go to war, you want to go and win a lot of football games, you want to play trenches football, these are the types of players that you need. So on to our final 4th round pick, and then we've got a big old gap until round 6 where we've got a couple of picks. Let's have a look who's available here, see if there's any potential steals. See, I think the Seahawks need another tight end, but I can't imagine Cade Stover being available in round 4. I think he's going to be a round 3 pick. I don't see him lasting this far. So it's quite difficult to take him here, because I just think I think he'd be a fantastic pick. But in the same way that, he won't be available and Jacob Cowing's not going to be available here and stuff like that, it just doesn't feel that realistic to me. Likewise, Braden Fisk is not going to be available here, and neither is Michael Hall Jr. So it's difficult in sort of this range to know what to do. I don't think Mike Sainstrel, who I think is a really good player, will be available here. I don't think Malik Mustafa's going to be available here. I'm going to take a chance on Brennan Jackson with this pick. He's a player that I've interviewed, thoroughly enjoyed interviewing him. He is not necessarily, elite twitch off the edge. I'm really looking forward to seeing if he runs a short shuttle. He says he is at the pro day for Washington State. What he can do. When you watch him on tape, he does remind you a little bit of Max Crosby with his all-out style. He will be a culture setter off the edge. But the difference between look, measurables and things like his split and everything like that, very similar to Max Crosby. But Max Crosby ran an elite short shuttle. It was like a 4.13 or something like that. It'll be very difficult for Brennan Jackson to match that. But I just think there is something there about him that is very interesting. And for the purposes of best player available, I'm taking him here. You will never have to worry about how much effort you are going to get from Brennan Jackson. So we get here into round 6. I still want to add a tight end at some point. And there are players still on the board here who have tested in the kind of range with the split and the short shuttle that I think is important. So I am going to take one here. I'm going to take Tanana McLin, the tight end from Arizona, as a sort of third tight end. I think you're just basically drafting for traits here and hoping that you can coach them up, get something out of them. And then with the second 6th-round pick, I'm going to take a player who, when his initial projection for explosive traits had him as a 3.00, but then he did the bench press at Michigan's Pro Day. For some reason, I don't know if they did a 220-pound bench press. Everybody seemed to struggle at Michigan. I was watching them do it. Like they found it a real struggle to do the bench press at Pro Day, and I don't know why that was. I don't know if it's because they did it immediately after the on-field drills or whatever, but everybody kind of struggled with it. I thought that was interesting. But Carson Barnes can play every position on the offensive line. And I think getting someone with that versatility will appeal to them, to the Michigan guy. He's going to be well coached. I think as a backup who can play across the line, I think there's some value to be had there. So I'm going to take him in the 6th round. And apparently the Seahawks met with him at Pro Day as well. And then with the final pick, I think you just need a bit of competition here. I think you need competition for the third down back position. DJ Dallas has gone. You've obviously got McIntosh in there, but I think you just need somebody else who can come in and compete for that job, given he didn't really feature much last year. And I thought Amani Bailey showed at TCU that he's an incredibly physical runner, and at the Senior Bowl showed he can be a terrific third down back. So I'm going to take him here to finish the draft class for the Seahawks. Now, there's the class. I am sure that a lot of people will not be blown away by this because, like I say, it's not as if there's no sort of splash to this. There's no excitement. Like what I mean by that is when they took Jackson Smith and Jigba a year ago, I think a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, that's exciting. It's a trendy pick. Go and get the highlights on. This is very much a meat and potatoes draft again for the Seahawks. And eventually they're going to have to do some different things. They are going to have to try and find X-factor splash plays on either side of the ball. They're going to have to find a franchise quarterback. That has to come. I think that the Howell trade is a precursor for them expecting not to be able to address that position in this draft. So this is what I've gone for. Disruptive, chaos creator up front on the defensive line to start with. Could be another Arik Armstead. Physical, aggressive, hard-hitting linebacker who can play either spot. Gives you club control for the next 4 years in Trevon Wallace. A left guard who is very experienced at left guard and can start quickly as a rookie, potentially. Dominick Hampton, incredibly intelligent, physical safety who can play a couple of different safety spots, can compete for the nickel as well. But there's a big nickel. Brennan Jackson, player I absolutely loved watching, just Mr. Football, gives absolutely everything Can't wait to see short shuttle times, but I think a player with if nothing else, is just going to be heart and soul type in that locker room, is going to give absolutely everything. Tanana McLin has got the traits to develop into a useful tight end at the next level. Can probably replace Colby Parkinson in that regard. Carson Barnes, versatile lineman who can play across the line. Good depth. Marnie Bailey, competition for the third down back role. And then you also get Philadelphia's 2025 third round pick for trading down, which could enable you to move up in next year's draft, or just sort of pad out your board for next year, when you probably are going to have to start seriously thinking about franchise quarterbacks and maybe being a bit more aggressive to fill certain needs to take you to that next level. So that's what I've gone with for this version of the mock draft. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of you will not like it. Some of you will go, yeah, I kind of understand the thinking. The whole point of this is to try and think about what the Seahawks will do. It's not necessarily what I would do. I totally understand it. It's not necessarily what you would do. You may well look at this and think, I want to spend a higher pick on left guard. I don't want to rely on someone like Trevor Keegan. I want to go bigger and bolder there. I get that completely. And I understand a world where the Seahawks do that. I think if Troy Fatano was there, they could easily just take him at 16. I don't think he will be there at 16, but if he was, I could totally understand them taking him. But I don't think they'll necessarily play him at guard. I think they could play him at right tackle if they do that, because I think he is a tackle rather than a guard. So there's lots of different things you have to consider here. But this is, I think, a realistic projection based on where players are going to go and the types of players the Seahawks will target, because not enough thought of that is put into. It's often with these kind of mock drafts, the people focus on need, or they focus on players that they've watched and personally have admiration for. I think you've got to think about what the Seahawks go for, which is high character. I think what is their mentality going to be? I think it is going to be hard-nosed defensive disruption up front, trenches focus. I think that's what they're going to be going for this year. And eventually down the line, again, they're going to have to find that franchise quarterback. But I could easily imagine a draft like this. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments section. You don't have to absolutely hammer it. You can have constructive discussions and stuff and talk about the players. And maybe you've not checked some of these players out, and I would recommend doing that on YouTube. Don't forget, SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos that we're putting out. Like the video, leave a comment. It always helps. Until next time, bye for now.